Okay, anybody who's tuning in on the stream, we're about to get the show started here. Just waiting for a few of the students to show up. We've got about 5 minutes before we're going to kick it off. Today, we are going to be going deeper with the display property. Last week, we got started with a little example of using the Flexbox, which is probably the most important display property to know about. Today, we're going to go further with it. We'll look at a couple of the properties of both Flex parents as well as Flex children, and we're going to improve that box to make it more responsive. So hang with me. We'll get things started in a couple of minutes. Amen. I'm not talking to myself. I know I sound crazy right now, but there could be people on the stream. Yeah, shoot.
Last class, I a little bit misunderstand. For instance, today we have lab, and what is due date to improve my project? For example,
it is yesterday.
Yes.
So that would be the final review yesterday. Yeah. So it's you get your first review 2 days after, and then the final review is then you have the week, and the final review is the day before the next lab.
Oh.
Yeah. So Wednesday.
Final review. So I have time to play a little bit on video, right?
Exactly. That's the idea.
That's what I want to ask.
Yeah. The dates are listed at the top of the lab, if you ever wonder. So you can check there as well.
So lab, and then I can improve my weekend, and I will get my mark before.
That's right. So we do give you a mark at the first feedback, just so you can kind of see where you're at, and then a couple of suggestions on things you can try, and then if you have any questions with it, you just let us know, we'll help you out with it, and then at the end, you get that final review. So it's kind of like collaboration. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I'm going to talk about that a little bit because I know probably people are shocked. I know a lot of people are probably like, what's going on? Let me toss a couple of lights on here. This one? Nope. This one? A little better?
But we need 1 day off.
Ah, there's light controls here. Nope. Sorry, guys. This one? This one? I guess I'll turn those ones off when we do the projector. Hey, welcome. Good, man. How about you?
Good. Starts at 12:35.
12:35, yeah. So got 2 minutes.
You see my project, like I uploaded yesterday?
Yesterday?
Yeah.
Then in that case, no.
Really? You messaged back.
Did I?
Yeah, you made this.
Did you make changes yesterday, or you started it
I uploaded
yesterday?
the wrong link.
Oh,
So I
wrong
had to
link.
re-upload it.
So you know what? That probably wasn't me giving you the feedback. Let's take a look.
Who was that?
Let's check it out.
That was a stranger.
Let's go in there. I think maybe Devin,
Who's that? I don't know.
which is one of my mentors. Which is you?
It's Aaron.
Aaron. There we go. This yourself, Aaron?
Yeah.
Oh, dude. Oh, man.
I uploaded the wrong one.
Yeah, you're screwed. I'm sorry, but you got the F. Because, or the C+, he's being very generous. Because usually this would be an F. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit. Because I really want people to take this feedback cycle pretty seriously. Well, I got to get started right now. Sorry. I know it's at times it's going to seem like I'm a bit of a hard ass, but I'm not. Like, the thing is, I'm streaming it, right? So if people are tuning into the stream, then I can't just be late. That's my reputation. So. Okay, it's about that time, guys. So get yourself settled in. We're going to get things started. So last week in Lab 1, we got started with this thing called the Flexbox. So today, Lab 2, we're going to go a little bit deeper with the Flexbox, which is part of the display property. We'll look at a couple of the other options, some of the older options for the display property. And we're going to basically take that menu bar we've been working on, make it a little bit more responsive. I prepared a couple of examples as well. And one of them I've shared on the resources area on Leaflet. So you can check that out. The other thing that we're going to do is talk a little bit about the feedback cycle. So we've gone through one full feedback cycle now. And maybe we can just kind of discuss that a little bit. I did spend like about 25 minutes in the last class talking about how that cycle works, but I know it's different. It's pretty different from what you're used to, and I think a lot of people kind of underestimate it in the beginning. So we should probably chat about that a little bit. Let me just do my camera switch here. Boom. All right. So I should probably start off with saying, like, get here on time, which is not fair to you guys because you're the ones who are here on time. I don't know what the practice has been up to now, but I start on time every time. And it's really important because I want to keep doing this stream for you guys. I think you'll find it extremely valuable being able to look back and review anything that we've done. Or if you can't make it here for some reason, you know, you won't get left behind because you can tune in on the stream. I've also got the professor mode session. So that could be really valuable for you. You never know what can happen, right? Of course, it's better if you can be here. But I'm mostly just looking for you to get your stuff done. So, you know, if it has been a habit to not start the class on time, just know like that's not happening anymore. And will never happen in any of the classes that I teach. Okay, so the second thing that I want to get into, and it's a shame there aren't more people here for this, maybe you can pass it along to them, is that review cycle that we have. So there's a very specific reason for why I'm doing this the way that I am. I think probably some people today are going to be surprised by the fact that they got a review and a grade already for what we did in my Lab 1. They shouldn't be, because I did talk about that quite a lot, and I even demoed it. And it's there in the stream as well, how that review process works. But I can recap it, and I can say, you know, it's there for your good. It's there to help you. It isn't there to cause a big burden for you, because I can tell you the motivation behind it. Like, I've been teaching at Seneca for about 9 or 10 years. Outside of Seneca, I've done a lot of corporate training as well, which, you know, pays a hell of a lot better, to be honest with you. I've also taught like dozens and dozens of workshops and You know, I've had thousands of students over the years. People always underestimate what it takes to become good at web development. It's a very different beast from the other things that you will do. We've got a couple of guys here doing video editing in the back. They've got their headphones on, but I can tell you, like, when you're doing video editing, you can do a monster session. You can grind on that. You can get in there. I've done it before myself. You can do like 12 hours in the suite and produce something pretty good out of it, right? Like, it's not uncommon to work that way. But in web development, that will kill you. Your brain will not be able to do that. Instead, what you need is a lot of smaller sessions. Never think about sitting down and grinding for hours at a time on code. I would say that probably I don't ever do more than an hour at a time of code. If I'm coming up on an hour, I'm going to get up, walk around, take a little break, and so forth. In our shop, we had standing desks, right? Because it's more healthy. And the other part of it is, like, it keeps you from getting locked into this kind of like a road hypnosis, where you're really not being too productive, but you don't want to give it up either. And the longer you work that way, the closer you get to your deadline, the more pressure you have on you, and it's terrible. So instead, I'm really trying to get you guys in the habit of doing frequent sessions. So think about today. Today we're gonna get hands-on. We're gonna do some stuff with display property. You should be thinking already, what am I gonna do next after that? If you could spend, let's say 2 hours after we do the class, you have a small break, and you can spend 10 minutes to look at what we did, even if you don't touch it. Even if you just go and look in it, well, if you look in it, I bet you will touch it. You know, if you look in it, you'll do a little thing in there. Maybe even if you just put a code note or something like that, that is going to improve your efforts like 1,000% right off the bat. And then tomorrow, when you get up, if you glanced at it again, same thing, right? So what we do is, after the lesson, 2 days from now, you're going to get feedback. And it's always going to be the case. Like, we're very, you know, I pay these guys who are giving you the feedback. I pay them out of my own money, all right? And these are industry professionals. They are giving up their time to do this because they want to work with you, all right? So you're going to get that first review 2 days from now, and you will get a grade. And I can tell you that that grade is almost always never going to be an A. How can we give you an A on the first feedback we give you when we haven't gotten any feedback from you? And part of your grade is, how do you communicate? So if you get a piece of feedback and you don't acknowledge it, I can tell you that won't stand in the workplace. You know, coding is so collaborative now. It didn't used to be. Years ago, when I first started doing this stuff, they'd basically take the whole project and they'd say, here, Tim, here you go. And I'll go off to my corner and I'll grind it out until it's done. But man, we can't work that way anymore, because like, things have gotten too complex. You know, we're not just doing websites. It's like software now. And you would never put your whole software on one person. That would be a formula for disaster. So I want to get you used to this collaborative idea. Here's another thought. All the feedback's open. You can look at anybody's feedback. You can look at what feedback you got. You can look at what feedback you got. Why not do it? You know, go in and look at the feedback that your classmates got. You'll learn from it, right? So I'll give you an example. Like, I think 7 of you guys I was giving the feedback for this week. Adam's giving the feedback for some other people. Devin's giving the feedback for some other people. Looking through what Adam had given, I was like, oh, I should have talked about the alt tag. I forgot about that. I really should have done that. You know what I mean? So like, I do that too, and it makes me better. Also, you know, it'll give you an idea, like if someone's did well, what did they do? You know, how did that happen? I'm dispensing with the one-size-fits-all model of education. It doesn't work, all right? A couple of years ago, I set out to really figure out what works and what doesn't work. And I did, before we launched into building our software, I did extensive research. And I talked to a lot of students, my students, other people's students as well. I also did a tour of all the high schools involved in the cyber arts program in Toronto. So these are supposed to be like the top high schools for, you know, people who want to flow into a course like this. I went to them. I talked to the profs there. I also made contact with the parents of students in those high schools and talked to them. And what I discovered is that the model that we're using, it's not working that well because it has no relationship to the way things are actually done in the industry. We've got to change that, which is what I set out to do. And you are experiencing the result of that effort now. It can be a lot of fun. And it will be when you get used to it. I'm not coming down on anybody here because I know it's pretty different. You've probably not experienced working this way before. And you won't in any other of the courses you do. You don't work that way in video. You know, there's no like online editor for video where everybody collaborates on the video edit, right? You won't work that way in sound design. You won't work that way in any of like your written classes, although they could. There are pretty good online editors for documents, right? But we're the web. It's a different beast. And the good thing is like there's so much opportunity in it. So maybe I can move along to the second part of what I want to encourage you to do. A lot of people come to college because they're not sure what they want to do. Is that a fair statement? You know, I think that's fair, right? How are you supposed to know? It's not like you've worked in any of these places or probably haven't even seen it. I know I had not. I had a completely incorrect view of what the industry was. So how can you base your decisions on that when you haven't seen it? So you come to school because basically for the next 2 years, you're going to have a pretty good idea of what you're going to be doing. It gives you a predictable path, basically, which is good, but you can find yourself at the end of that path still not knowing what's next. I've got my 4th semesters right now, and, you know, some of them are still struggling with that. Like, what am I going to do? What should my emphasis be? And I tell you, the time between now and graduation, it's like a heartbeat. It's going to go by so fast. It may not seem like it today, but like you'll wake up and be like, oh my God. I was talking with the 4ths about this, and I was like, I feel like I just met you guys. They're all like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I'm going to be graduating. So, like, what I want to emphasize out of this is that you really should put your focus on the web. Every other course you are doing, every other class you are doing, you are only doing it to support your web work. The web has eaten everything. Every piece of video you make, every document you create, every picture you take, every piece of Photoshop work you do is going to go on the web. And if it doesn't, no one's going to see it ever, and it doesn't mean anything. That sounds really harsh. That's true, though. That is the reality. Think of how you come across media. You do a search, right? You know, you find things online. People hardly watch television anymore. You know? And the way they watch it's completely different. They binge watch things. It's like, I want to see this. I don't want to pay for all these other channels that you're trying to push on me. I only want to see what I want to see. And I can, because internet. You know, so this is why I'm saying, like, whatever you're interested in, just know that the web is going to be the central part of what you're doing, and you should be planning for that. You're starting to know how to build things for the web for yourself. Don't stop there. Think about the fact that the content you're creating in your other classes, you should be thinking about, how can I get this on the web? Even now you can, right? You haven't learned yet how to host a site. You haven't learned how to set up a domain or things like that, but you're on CodePen. CodePen is public. It's a community. What's stopping you from putting your stuff on there right now? Very little. Some of you did do that. That's pretty cool to see. So when I'm doing an evaluation, oh, sorry, microphone. That probably sounded like super loud. When I'm doing an evaluation, when I see that, I get excited about that, because I'm like, this person gets it, you know? So in terms of like practical application of this, we're always going to encourage you to try and do that, to use your creativity a little bit. Even if you can only write one line of code, and that one line of code can put one sentence on the screen, you can make it your sentence. Why not make it a haiku? You know what I mean? Haikus are very interesting. If all you know to do is put some text on the screen, you can still do something that gets attention. So in the last lab, like, we did the Whole Foods thing. So, you know, if we're doing the review and it's still Whole Foods, well, it's okay, but it's pretty average. Wouldn't you agree? You might not agree. You may say, what do you mean? I did exactly what you did, therefore I should have a perfect A. It's not about fair. It's about effective. It's about what gets you the result you need to have a great career. And you can have a great career in doing web work. It is hugely in demand, and no schools are meeting that demand. Can I tell you why? I do want to jump right into doing some code here. That's good times. But I'll tell you what has happened. I touched on it a little bit in Lab 1, is that the web has overnight become a viable software platform. But the comp sci programs have not caught up to that fact. If you wander through the TEL building over to the other areas here, you're going to see them teaching what they've always taught. It's going to be Java, it's going to be C. Sometimes they'll like dabble in some other stuff like Fortran and stuff like that, but you don't see them taking JavaScript seriously. People will get like one light introductory semester of JavaScript. And then they'll graduate and they'll find out, oh my God, JavaScript has eaten everything. Everything's being made in JavaScript. You know who is learning that stuff? All you guys. That's where JavaScript has always been taught, is in the arts programs. This means huge opportunity for you, but it does mean that you're going to have to make that conscious choice to put in the effort, because it's not something you will learn overnight. But along the way, you will have a heck of a lot of fun. You know? Like, it's a tool for you to express yourself. And I strongly encourage you to do so. So what's the effective pattern here? That's what we're trying to get you in the habit of. What is the effective pattern? So you're in class and you're here on time. Okay? Be here on time. I'm not screwing around. Okay? I run my own company. I take time out of that company to be here. Do you know how many hours I get paid for by the school? 2.5. How many hours do you think I put in giving you the feedback this week? How much do you think I paid experienced developers to take their time to give you feedback? I am operating at a significant loss to be here because I want to meet you. I want to meet the people who are going to come out and make awesome stuff. I'm not here for the money, I can tell you that. So take it seriously as I do. Please. We'll have a lot of fun. You know, I used to have, when I was a kid, I had this pet, Nikki, my dog. Anybody had a dog? It's the best. I wish everybody would have a dog, you know. But when I first got the dog, I wanted to play fetch. So I was like, yeah, Nikki, let's play fetch. And I'll throw the stick, and Nikki would be like, you know? And so after a while, I'm like, oh my God, he's not getting it. What's wrong with this dog? And I throw the stick, and I throw it like at Nikki, and the stick will like bounce off him. And I'm like, oh, now I'm an asshole because I just threw a stick at my dog. But I'm trying to get this interaction going on here. The first time Nikki like went and grabbed the stick and brought it back, I'm like, oh my God, Nikki. And Nikki's like, what? And then we're playing fetch. And it's awesome, right? So when we give you that first feedback, don't let it like bounce off of you and do nothing, right? Now, I mean, I did talk about it in the last class, but I realize it's different, probably not used to it, so I'm not coming down hard on anybody. But I just want to make sure, like this week, we're going to toss that stick again. You know, let's see what we can do, okay? All right. Okay, enough of that. So let me dive on over into the desktop here. And I've got a couple of cool things for us to do today. We're going to work more with that display property. We should also probably do a quickie little review of what we did the last time. Sounds good? Let me get my system started up here. And we can also do a quick little review of the submission process, just to make sure that you're all good on that. So let me go to my lab 1, where we did the box model. Let's begin by talking about the box model. That is probably the basis of everything. Remember this little sketch we did, guys? So here's my content. Might be text, might be images, might just be a colored, you know, box. And then we've got this outer box here. And this is what we call the box model. And everything is a box in HTML. All your headings, all your text blocks, all your images, they're always a box. So this space in between your content and your border, what do we call this? Oh, shit. Hold on. I almost wrote it down. Here's my content. Here's my border. What do we call this space in between here? Anybody? Padding. Awesome. Big part of the box model. And then, usually not ever going to have just one box. Your page is going to be a combination of boxes. So what do we call the space in between the boxes? It is space, it's true. There's a specific CSS property. Margin. Yes, exactly. So the box model, anytime you hear about that, is a combination of your content, your padding, your border, which can also have a width property like this. So your border might actually have some thickness. And then margin in between the boxes. So one of the first things we did was to create this little thing called a CSS Reset. Let me bring up the code. Projector. So just as a reminder, the code that we did is always in this green lesson pen up here in the top. Oh, I guess it's still warming up. Oh, nope, actually, I need HDMI. Where's my HDMI? Okay, green link on the type right here. You can always get to the code that we did. It sticks around. Whoa. Huh. My link is broken. Hold on. It's interesting. There was an issue with CodePen this week. They lost some of my pens, but to their credit, when I talked to them about it, they actually are sponsoring us now. They gave me a free year team subscription to CodePen. Pretty awesome, right? That's how you make your customers happy. Well, you know what? Let me bring up. Oh, here we go. Lab 1. Good. So this first little chunk right up here, guys. Let's review some of the terms we use here. What's this little selector here called? Anybody remember that one? It's got a couple of names, so if you want to take a guess, you'll probably be right. Yeah. Yeah, this little star, you do hear people call it the star selector sometimes. You'll also hear them call it like the universal selector or the global selector. And they call it that because this selector is very powerful. It selects every single thing on the DOM here. So any rules that you put in there are going to get applied universally. So this whole chunk here, we call this a CSS reset. And the reason we do it, number one here, it's very common to kill all the margins, to set them all to 0. And the reason why is because margins, the way that the browser does spacing in between your boxes, is based mostly on typography rules. And that's kind of a problem when you're making like user interfaces. It can do very unpredictable things because it's trying to apply the same rules that it would put to text margins to everything. So your images, your boxes, your backgrounds, all that stuff, it's trying to treat it like text. So what people typically will do, first of all, is like kill those margins. That right there is going to save you so much problems with your layout. The second thing we're doing is this box sizing border box. Anybody remember why we do that one? Which property that affects?
To optimize for each side of the screen.
Yes, that is very true. That's our ultimate goal. And the way that it's getting there is by affecting the padding. So box sizing border box, it affects padding and margins. And what it does, it makes the browser treat those things consistently everywhere. Because if you think about it, if I'm the content, and these are my borders right here, and I assign some padding, like maybe, 1 foot on either side of me here, there's 2 ways I can make that happen. I can be like, and push them further apart to make the space, or I can like, suck it in and make myself skinnier. And this says suck it in and get skinnier every time. So we never have to worry about sometimes pushing out and sometimes pushing in. And our padding now becomes very consistent. So when we set the padding, we know what the result is going to be. So we've kind of eliminated the problems with the margin. The downside is that if we want some margin somewhere, we'll have to put it in ourselves. But that's a lot easier to do than trying to deal with these margin problems all over. And then the box sizing border box is going to make sure that if we say something is this wide, and then we give it padding, it isn't suddenly going to get wider. You know what I mean? It's going to stay that width.
It's like a smart padding?
Yes. Smarter than, and more predictable than the way the browser does it. Because the browser is, again, all completely built on print. It's going to try to apply print rules, and generally that's not what we want. Okay, a couple more properties in here. Background, y'all know what that's about. But let's do a quick little experiment here. If we removed that margin 0, see what happens there? Everything's pretty messed up, right? Sorry. So because by default, there is a style sheet in this. It's called the user agent style sheet, and it sets all the default styles for every browser. But the problem is, it isn't the same in the different browsers. So you'll get like different results. So we kind of, fix that problem by doing this question. Do you want to shoot it into the chat window? I can open the professor mode. Then we can all take a look. So let's go to lab 2. Right here. And the professor mode session is right here. Now, just so you guys know, what you'll be doing today is forking your lab 1, and that's what you're going to submit for lab 2. That way you'll have a copy for your lab 1, and then we're going to make it better today. Does that make sense? So, and then as always, if you want to do any kind of debug session, shoot it at me. Then anybody on the stream and the whole class, we can work on it together. Questions? Okay. So go to lab 2. So right over here is our labs. So today we're on lab 2, right here. And then see this green link right up here? This is my professor mode session for this lab. And there's a new one like every lab. And then as far as your submission that you're going to be doing, you're going to hit the fork button. So you'll open up your lab 1, hit the fork button. That'll make a new copy of it. And that's the one you're going to submit today. So for me, if I was doing it, like here's my lab 1 from last week, I would hit the fork button, boop, right here. That makes this new one for me. And then I'm going to copy the URL and submit it for lab 2. That way you have a copy for your lab 1, and you have the exact same thing to work on today, and we'll just keep working and make it a little better today. When you do, you'll be showing up. There's a couple. Arian's in there. Tedo. Tedo. It takes a couple of times, but you'll get the hang of it. Yeah, go for it. So let's go ahead and submit links. Now for the first couple of times, I'll be right with you. Oh, good. Okay, cool. Nice. So it'll take a couple of times to get used to this. I'm not expecting miracles, but here's my #1 tip. Go log in afterwards just to make sure that you submitted the right thing. You know what I mean? Because that's maybe the software is pretty good at catching it if you try and submit something incorrect. But if you submitted the wrong pen or something like that, I have no way of knowing it. Question?
I copied and pasted my URL in lab 2.
Yep.
And then I can see any here, but when I edit and copy, I can see my lab 1. So
I think you're not logged in. Yeah, go ahead and log in.
Oh, yeah.
No problem. Oh, that's cool. I like it. I think it was Adam give you the feedback, right? Was it Adam? Hey, guys.
She misplaced her fork from last week.
Oh, then go to your main account. So if you're logged in, yeah, maybe click here. and then go to pens, and everything should be in there. That's fine. Go ahead and, yeah, and I bet you it's in the fort if you click on there. Ooh, you got a lot of forks going on. Is one of those your work from last week?
I don't know what happened.
Well, let's see here. Let's go back to this view. I think you may not have saved your work, possibly. So what I'll suggest is just make a new one, and let's go from today. So let's see what we got here. Okay, let's go make one. So we're gonna go create, new pen. There we go. And if you want, you can put the lab 2 in here, and then so lab 2, and then once you save it, see how that updates with your URL now? So grab this one, boop, and then we're on lab 2. So go ahead and we'll toss it in here, pop, submit, and then you're good to go. And this will always stay in your pens. Here. So if you ever want to look in it, you can just click on here, and all of your pens should be saved there.
And sir, so I forked mine.
Great, great.
And then I just
oh
copied
yeah, I was looking at this. It was great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I noticed that I didn't have to fork it and then resubmit it. It automatically would update once I worked on here, and then I would go to Leaflet, and it would.
Yes, exactly. So what we see on Leaflet is an embed of your work on CodePen. So any work you do in there, it should automatically show up. But it never hurts to check.
Thank you.
Just to be safe. Yeah.
2 things.
Yeah.
I did my,
Ah, yeah, nice, nice.
but I get a B, but I get it. Say it right now. But there's one thing that occurs to me. A logo that I choose for
Yeah.
Whole Foods. I pick a link from Google, and I think the guys moves for the from the server.
Ah,
and I miss it,
yes.
so I have to get another one.
Ah,
But
I've got something for you.
yeah, I wanted to know if I can like
Save.
bring my own
Yeah.
logos, my own things here, and
Yeah.
like host.
Yeah,
on this site.
definitely.
I can do it.
Yep, let me show you. I've got actually a video. So to host them like on CodePen, you gotta have the pro account, but I'll show you something else. One of the links on Lab 1, this is a really good question here, guys. So the question is about images and hosting images. Right down here, we've got an extra video for you, which is how to host your images on Google Drive. Oh, that's Devin. Some of you guys had some feedback from Devin. So we put together this, and if you watch this through, it'll show you how to put your images on Google Drive and host them. So this is a really nice solution because they give you, I don't know, it's like 15 gigs or something crazy, and it's totally free. But there is a little trick you need to do to get the URL you can use. It's in the links. So I don't know if you guys noticed, but for each lab that we're doing, I have extra resource links here you can look at. So this first one, this is my own CodePen account, and I've got like tons of little examples on here showing you how to do the different display properties. Each one of them is small, you know, shows one specific thing. And then this one here is the video. So if you want to see how to host your images nice and reliably, that's good. Now this I wanted to show you guys because this is kind of relevant to the images. This is some of my previous first semester students' stuff. And this is kind of what I'm shooting for with you guys here. So in the first semester, you're not going to be able to build your entire application yourself, right? Like we're not going to get that far in first semester. But what you can build is a nice promotional page of an application that you would want to do. You know, something you might eventually want to put on Google Play or on the App Store or something like that. So we work on this assignment where we use responsive code to put your application inside of a phone face here, and it all just like sizes up nicely and looks good, and everybody gets to sort of visualize their idea. So this person here, I actually have her in 4th semester right now, which is cool because she's learning to actually really build this stuff. So she had this idea called the Seneca Easy Eatery, and she was picturing an application where you can crowdsource picking up your coffee, you know, because the lines are so big. If somebody has the app and they're already in the lineup, then you could say, hey, get me a double-double. And, you know, if you do that a couple of times, then your coffee is free, something like that. Pretty cool idea, right? So everybody's kind of visualizing their thoughts. Taras here, he had an idea about a real estate application that would show you places near the school with pictures in it, you know, in order to find a good place to stay. He's come here from Russia, I think, so it's pretty relevant for him. So, you know, this is kind of what we're shooting for. So these are not like fully functional applications, but they're nice UIs. But you'll see how there's like missing images in here. This used to have like a really nice coffee bean background, looked really sweet, had like little logo images in here, and it was like really nice. But what happens is they used images, like they hot linked to Google Images, and then like those get moved or taken down or something. And so after a little while, like it's not looking so nice anymore. So I would say like give that video a watch. And then rather than hot linking, if you see an image you want to use, just like get it, put it in your Google Drive and use it from there. And then it'll never go away. It's good, eh? All right. Okie dokie. So let me exit out of that. And here, I'll just close a couple of tabs. And we were taking a quick look at lab 1 here. Let's bring back our margin 0. So this is just review. You guys have already basically done this stuff. And then we set a background. We set the width to 100%. And then we turn on this one here, which we call the Flexbox. So when I say Flexbox, what I mean is like display set to flex. So we're going to go a little bit further with this today. And so maybe what I'll do, I'm going to copy some of this stuff over into my lab 2. And we'll continue on from this point so I can show you a couple of options for the Flexbox. So let's see here. I've got my HTML. I've got a head area. I'm not doing too much with yet. I've got a body. I've got a nav. So let me grab this HTML. Copy ito. Head on over here. Oh, and then we've got our first link to take a look at. Let me grab my CSS Reset stuff. Copy this. Throw it in there. Not really doing JavaScript just yet. I will give you guys a little JavaScript introduction before the end. And then as the courses go on, you'll learn more and more JavaScript as you go. But we'll get a little start on it in this semester. Okay, so some fairly straightforward stuff. We got an H3. We've got some padding options in here. Now take a look at this little unit of measurement that we're doing called the EM. Does anybody remember how that unit of measurement works? Where the browser gets that from? Because we're not saying any pixels, right? So like how does it know what is an EM?
Comes from the line of the letter.
Yeah, it's if you were to take a capital M and measure it, whatever size that is, that's now our unit of measurement for this, which is pretty good. Anytime you're dealing with typography, you should probably use those EM measurements. And the reason why is because it can change, if someone goes in the accessibility options of the browser and increases the font size, right? Maybe they've got like poor eyesight or something and they need bigger fonts to read from. Well, let's say I had set the my background here to be like 64 pixels, but now they made the font bigger and suddenly it's sticking out over my background here. It's a big problem, right? But when we use EM measurements for that stuff, it'll scale up along with the scaling that they apply through the accessibility options. So I would say use that wherever you can, is a good rule of thumb here. Okay, cool. Let me put a couple more links in here, and we're going to keep working. Everybody's got their pen up and it's submitted, ready to rock. All right, let's do it. Okay, let me go in here, and I'm going to throw in maybe a couple more links here. So let's see. Let's go with what would we see? Probably we're going to see like specials, something like this. Maybe one more here. I'm going to say like, God, I got nothing. Locations, excellent. Thank you, sir. Great, cool. So this is looking pretty right, but it's not really what I want. I actually want to have my orders appearing on the right-hand side over here. A couple ways I could do it. First of all, let me grab this guy out of here. And I'll stick him on the bottom. And this kind of shows something important right away. Your ordering matters in HTML. It doesn't matter as much in JavaScript, but in HTML, it pretty much goes from the top of the page and works its way down. So ordering actually does make a difference. And if somebody is on a screen reader, that ordering determines the order that the screen reader will read it out as well. So you kind of got to think about it. Like, if a person's on screen reader, are they going to want to hear my orders last? I don't know. Maybe not. But let's go with this example here. So I've got my, probably what's going to be a logo over here in the Whole Foods. Then I've got 3 more links inside of here. And let's see what is the effect if we remove our display flex here for a second. So go up to your CSS. Let's take that out of there. Oh my God. This is not what I want at all, right? But this is the normal page flow. Because divs have a display property set to block by default. It's part of that user agent style sheet we're talking about. Now they do it because, you know, divs are kind of like a paragraph, and you usually want to put paragraphs on top of each other. But in this case, it kind of messes us up. So let's talk a little more about that display property. Let me do a little bit of sketching for you here, because I want to talk about a concept called the axis. Switch back to my front screen here and grab a marker. Here's basically how the Flexbox works. You set display to be flex, and when you do, remember I said that divs are usually set to display block? So now you're saying, no, I don't want to do that. Let me switch the display and make it flex instead. Once you do, you get access to something that block doesn't have, which is the direction. And the full name is like flex direction. It's got 2 values. One is called column. Now if we set it to column, you're not going to see any difference from what we have right now. Because column says, okay, just be like a block, like stack them on top of each other. But you get this other option, row. And when you turn that one on, you're saying, ignore your usual behavior. I want to put things side by side. Oh, that is so good. Now, there's a couple other ways that you can do that in CSS as well. They each have their little foibles and problems with them. You can set display to be something called inline block, which will put things side by side, but you will also lose some of the other properties that you want in the page. When you use the Flexbox and you set to row, you don't really interrupt any of the other properties of the page by doing that. So that's really nice. The other thing it does, it lets you control the space that is around the items lining up side by side. So in my, I'll jump back to the, let me jump back to the desktop for a second here. In my little example here, let me turn my display flex back on. I've got this other chunk of space all the way across here. And ordinarily, we don't really have a way of accessing that in CSS, believe it or not. That sounds really weird, but they didn't really design it for us to be able to mess with this extra space inside of here. It's not even accessible. There's no selector that will say, hey, give me the chunk not being used. There's nothing like that. So in the past, we've had to do all these kind of tricks, right? We'd say like, oh, stick in another space inside of here to force it over. So let me go to an example from last week because I saw a couple of people doing that. I'm not picking on Vince. I'm just bringing up his example here because I thought it was a pretty nice example. Let me go to Vince's lab one for a second here. Vince. There we go. And let me go in here. So he does have the My Orders over here on the edge. Let's see how he managed to pull that off. So he's got a padding left set to 45 EM. So that's what I'm talking about, right? In order to get this pushed over to the right here, he basically had to, kind of calculate out how many characters would be available in there and put that space in there. And it works, right? Like, it works. But in terms of adaptive design or responsive design, you're going to hit some problems with that approach. So if I start to scale my browser around here, know what I mean? It's getting clipped off there. When what I really want is that it would adapt. It would move itself over as I'm moving the browser. If it reaches a point where it's getting like squished up against this, then I want it to change the design. I want to maybe switch it to an icon so I've got more room in there, something like that. That's the heart of responsive design. That's what we're after here. So let's see if we can make that happen. Going back to my lesson here. Okay, let's do a couple of things. First of all, I need to give you one more term, which is called the axis. Okay, axis is important because it is used to determine a couple of the properties we're going to look at here. So let me explain that a little better. When you set flex direction to column, you're saying put things on top of each other, which means the axis is vertical. If you say set the flex direction to row, in other words, put things beside each other, you can probably guess the axis is horizontal. Okay? Now this is important because there's two more properties of the Flexbox and they work on the axis. One is called justify content. Try this one with me. We're going to say justify dash content and you've got a couple of potential values in here. I'll get you to try out this one. Space dash around. Oh, haha. So what's happening here, just give me 1 second, guys. Make sure I've got my notes up here. Yeah, so what's happened here is we've said, okay, that space that was left in here, I want to have control over that. You can actually say what to do with it. By using the space around, we've said divide it up evenly and put each chunk in between each of the items in here. Yeah, that works. So how does it know which ones to space out? It is every child inside of the element that we turned on the Flexbox for. It works on the immediate children here. So it says, okay, let me measure how big is Whole Foods, specials, locations, my orders. Okay, that was that big. The browser's this big. That means I have this much left. Let me divide it by however many children we have and stick it in there. And so that happens for you, and you didn't have to do any math, right? And the other thing that's nice is that in terms of responsive, check this out. See what it's doing? It is automatically recalculating every time the screen size is changing. That's pretty good. So we're kind of off to a good start here. But I didn't really want, this isn't really what I was after here. I wanted to keep these on the left. Yeah, question? Oh, yeah. Let's check it out. Okay, let's take a look. Alrighty. Right, and the reason why is because we've still got these in here. So technically there's no space to divide. Yeah, so let's lose that one out of here. We'll just kind of like kill that. And then let's go back up here and see if we've got the justify content. And what was the value we're after? Space around? Space around. Because there's another one as well. So we'll say space around, and then, you know, we get that. But there's another one too. Give it a try. It's space between. Now that's a little more like what we were going for, right? Because now this guy is like stuck against the edge here, and this guy is also stuck up against the edge here. So there's a slight difference between space around and space between. Space between won't put any of that extra space at the start and end. It will only put it between. But space around will put some space around each item. Did that make sense? I danced and everything. Yeah, question?
If we put an ID to one div, we give specific instructions to that div. That line of code will override those properties?
It won't overwrite them, but it can add to them. We'll do it. I'm going to show you something called a pseudo selector today as well. Yeah, I like the way you're thinking there. You're probably trying to think like, oh, maybe we can apply the spacing just to these guys, but do something different for this guy, or something like that. Yeah. So let's. Yeah, I like how you're thinking there. I was thinking similarly. So let's take a look at some ways that we might do that. So let's see here. We'll keep the space between. Let's keep that. Because I don't really want extra spacing on the sides here. And we're going to introduce another property. Let me jump back to the professor mode here. Is that all good, Vince? Yeah. Nice. Okay, so let me switch this to space between, just like this. And this is good, but we can do a little bit better here. So let me show you a pretty common technique with responsive. I'm going to go in here into my HTML. Right after my locations, I'm actually going to put another element in here. And I'm just going to make it like a span. Now, have you guys used a span before? It really doesn't do too much. But like if I put some content in here, you'll see what's going on. See how I got like inserted this little ja here? A span doesn't put any break in. Okay, so you can, like if you've got a paragraph of text and you want to style just one word of that without putting any line breaks in, you can put a span around that one word and then target the span with a style. So it keeps everything in line. So I'm going to use this for a nice little responsive trick. So take your span, give it a class. I'm going to call mine like flex span. Because here's what I'm thinking. I don't want to work too hard with this. I don't want to have to calculate pixels or anything like that. What I need is basically like a little greedy element here that'll try and take up as much space as he can. You ever go on the subway and it's like busy on the subway and there's not too many seats? And then there's like 3 seats, but then somebody's like on top of it and like an extra seat for their bag kind of thing? We need one of those guys because we want him to try and take up as much space as he can and push this guy around, right? So that these guys get, crowded over to this side and this guy gets shoved all the way over here. So to do it, we're going to use a new property called flex grow. And we're going to tell this guy grow as much as you can, all right? So let's make another selector over here. Let me go maybe down below my divs. And I'll target that span by its class. So you're going to put a dot to target the class. Target this little flex span here. And we'll put in that flex grow property. And try this. Give it a value of 2. Oh, snap. That's kind of what I want, right? That's what I was after.
You are controlling the class right now.
Yes. So I stuck in this little element called flex span. I give it a class called flex span. And then I'm targeting flex span. I'm giving it a property.
Only affecting my orders.
Yes. This style here is only affecting this one element right here. So what does this do, the flex grow? Flex grow operates on what we call a flex child. So this flex grow property here, we wouldn't put it on the nav because the nav is the parent. But we can put it on any one of the children here. And by default, all these guys have the same flex grow property, which is 1. So if we don't mess with it, they'll all try to take up the same amount of space because they all have the same grow property. So it will be exactly even like we saw. Now what we've done is we've said this guy should grow more than anybody. Because he's 2 and the rest are all 1, he's going to take up as much space as he can. He basically is like a greedy element now. And as soon as he does, these guys will be pushed. But the nice thing, increasing the number won't change anything because it's based on a ratio. So if I go like 3, it's still the same because he's still going to be the biggest. Yeah. But you can use this property if you're doing like a multi-column layout. So let's say I have 4 columns, and maybe I set the first one to 1 and the second one to 1, but then these guys are 2. They're going to take like, yeah. We'll do that today. We're going to start putting a little bit of content down below here, and you'll see an example of that.
So we can move like some part, like some section if you want.
Yeah, but we're doing it responsively now. Not, what did I say? Not responsibly. We're doing it responsively here. So if you grab your browser and you start scaling it around, you know, it's not clipping anything, it's not chopping anything off, and everything is maintaining its relative size here. So if you're thinking about it, this means we're in kind of a new age, doesn't it? Because I can tell you, like, for years, the way that we would do stuff is like, we'd mock it up in Photoshop. We would design everything inside of Photoshop, and then we'd basically recreate it inside of here. But Photoshop can't do this, can it? So what's happened is, like, many places now are just skipping the Photoshop step. They go straight to design in the browser. Yeah. Exactly. So like, we don't ever anymore do like that pixel perfect design. I don't know how many hours that I spent nudging things around to match a pixel for no reason. The visual result made no difference to anybody, but somebody would, it was their job to say, yeah, you got to move that by 2 pixels, no matter what. That time is gone, right? Instead, what we shoot for is more like a style. So we pick out things like, here's a nice font treatment, here's good color swatches, here's accessible text, and so forth. We work with those.
Going to the website.
Yeah. You got to see it the way it's going to be seen by the people actually using it. I love CodePen for that reason, you know, because you can design right in the browser the same place people are going to see it. Okay, this is looking pretty good. But you guys notice how, well, there's a couple of things. I don't really like my font. My font is like pretty old school, right? So like, step number 1, never use the default font. Because people are so used to associating that with like old school 90s type websites, like MySpace type of shit. So you want to get away from the default font. And then the other thing I'm not super happy about is like how closely this is stuck to the edge here. So now to your question, I want to target just this guy. Now there's a couple ways you can do it. First, I'm going to show you the way that, you know, people usually do it. But I want to talk about why maybe you don't want to do it this way. So, but don't feel bad if this is how you would usually do it. Maybe I would go in here to the My Orders, and I'll give it an ID, and I'll give it a name like, you know, push right or something like that. Here, let me get rid of the JavaScript box. We don't really need it today. You know? So this is a really typical way people would do it. And then I would go in here and make a selector for that. So to target an ID, you're going to use the pound. You guys have, I think you guys have done a little bit of that, right? Yeah. So we'll target the ID, the push right. And, you know, now I'll give it like a little bit of right padding here. You know. Okay, so it does the job, right? It's okay. Yeah, exactly. Which is usually the way people do it at first. But if you get working in and if it's only you working on it, it's probably going to be okay. But let's say, for instance, like we're working on a team together here. And so partway through the project, we've got a lot more stuff inside of here. And, you know, somebody gives you a job to do some kind of styling on here. So you make a new style in here. And then you change the ID of this one to apply the new style because you're just kind of making some visual change. But suddenly now it breaks because this style's gone. That's really easy for that to happen, you know? And especially when you add in JavaScript, maybe I was targeting that with JavaScript by its ID. So, yeah. Oh, there should be a little chat box right down here. So if you just copy your URL and put it in there, we'll have a go at it. Do you have my professor mode session?
No,
open?
I need mine.
Oh, you need mine.
Okay.
So click on Leaflet and click on the green link. Yeah, and you can put it right in there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because mine is not working. Look what happened
Okay.
when I put Flexbox.
Alrighty, we'll get it.
Okay.
Let's take a look. I love it. Oh, dude, it's so good. I love it.
So how do I put like this another? I have one button type, and I have to put this also with this inside this.
So you want to expand the button? Is that the idea?
No, I need to use class. Span also over here with button.
Oh, you can add a class to a button, no problem. You just say class equals and stick it in there. And you can also do multiple classes if you want. You can put spaces in between the classes and add more than one. Okay, so open up my chat window, give me your URL, and let's take a look. Cool. Okay, so let me show you. We'll do a little debug session here in just 1 second. But I'm going to show you an alternative approach for targeting that last link in there. And to do it, we're going to use a little bit fancy selector here that is called a pseudo selector. So here's what it looks like. Instead of applying it this way, let me remove this little ID here. Because the good practice is like, if you can get away with not adding a class or an ID to the thing, you will make your life a lot easier because there's much less chance of somebody messing with that class or ID and suddenly the thing breaks. There is another way of doing your selector. So here's how you do it. First off, I'm going to say, okay, select the nav. So I'm selecting the whole nav element. So it's going to locate this. So now we've basically selected this whole thing here. Then I'm going to say, go inside the nav and look for any divs. All right, so now we've narrowed that selection down to just the divs. And then here's where our pseudo selector comes in. I think you're going to love this. You're going to put a little colon and say last child. Have you seen that before? Pretty cool, right? You see how that works? So we've kind of like refined our selection. So it was this whole thing, then we cut it down just to the divs, and with our pseudo selector we can say, give me the last one.
So if you modify the architecture of your website, you're all talking the last one.
That's right, yeah. And there's a bunch of these pseudo selectors. There's another one called first child, which can be really handy. Let's say you want to like highlight an article at the top of a list of articles. Yeah, and you don't have to add any classes, you don't have to add any IDs, and you don't have to worry about like somebody messing with those classes or IDs. Much nicer way of doing it. I would recommend doing it this way. So then, so then if I want, I can now put my padding in here. So I'll say padding right, 1 EM maybe. And there you go. You know, no divs, no classes, no worries. So the name for that one, and just so you know, if you want to put a little note in your code here, you do it by using a /* when you're in the CSS area. So this one is a pseudo selector used on a descendant selector. So it's kind of like two selectors in one here, right? So our first selection is nav, and then when we go inside of it and look for div, we call that a descendant selector, because we're descending into it. And then this little white one after here, we call a pseudo selector. So for pseudo selectors, you got your first child, you have your last child. There's also another one called nth child, and it lets you actually put in a number to specify which one you want to target. So you can get like pretty darn specific with these. Yeah, you know, the font is bugging me. I feel like I want to do something with that. Shall we do it? Let's see here. Let's do this. I don't necessarily want to target like all the fonts in my entire thing. So maybe I can use those descendant selectors here. I'll say, first of all, target the nav, and then just target maybe div. So this is any divs inside the nav. And let's change up the font family. We'll go with Courier, maybe, something like that. Hey. Don't you think like almost any change of font is going to be better than Times New Roman, right? There's nothing wrong with Times New Roman. It's just like it's so old school by now. Yeah, Vince?
So by putting it on the right side, you don't have to really big this wording
Can you say that again? Oh yeah, I was going to do some debugs. Sorry guys. I really need like an assistant, you know, just to watch the chat window here. Let's do some debugs. So I think first up, so I'll just work my way down the list and we'll get to you here. So Mary, is it Marie or Mariana? Okay. It'll take me a little while, but I'll remember everybody eventually. Oh la la. That's what we want to see, right? Man, isn't this so much nicer here? Yeah. Probably not today, but in next week's labs, I'm going to get into some techniques for handling images and making them responsive. We are going to look at the background property, and we'll look at the CSS position property. So with that one, you'll be able to do any kind of icons or images or anything like that you want to do is be like, good. But I love to see like that popping up in there already. But what about these guys here? Was this what we were shooting for? Okay. I don't want to step on your creativity here, but let's see if we can figure out why that's happening. Maybe. Let's see here. So I think first of all, I think I'll take a look at the HTML. Let's make sure that everything is closed okay, because if something's not closed, then maybe our selectors can't find what they need to. So let's see, we've got a nav here. Do we have a closing on nav? We do, and it's highlighted, so that's cool. Then we've got an image element. Although, I don't know that I'm seeing a closing on the image. So there's two ways we can do it. We can do it like with like this. Or we can just stick, images let us do like this little inline closing where we can just put a slash right on the end here. So that could be part of it, but that doesn't seem to have solved things yet. Let's see, so then we've got div, div, div. If you guys see anything I'm missing, then feel free to sing out, help me out. Let's close out this image as well. There we go. Okay, so the HTML looks like it's all in good shape to me. So let's see what else we can find here. Let's head over to the CSS. And let's see, so we've got our margin 0, that's nice, box sizing, nice. And in the nav, our orange is showing up, that's great. Our width is good, we've got our display set to flex. And the justify content, space around, it looks pretty good. What am I missing here? Let me take a look in the developer tools. I can go inspect. That will let me highlight things and might give me a clue what's going on here. So, here's a div, here's a div. Basically, I'm just like hovering over these elements here. And when I do, it puts a highlight on it. And it also gives me a little box to show me properties about it. It's pretty nice. So let's see if we can figure out why this is giving us some grief here. That looks good, good. This looks pretty good to me. I was wondering if maybe the image was hogging space or something like that, because like they can, you know, grow and it might be taking up some of the space. That doesn't seem like it. When I click specifically on the nav element, I can look at what properties it's got. So it does have the justify content space around. What am I missing? There's something I'm missing here. Okay, here's what I'm going to do just to simplify things a little bit. I'm going to temporarily remove the images. And then if that does cause them to space out, then I know there's something with those images giving me trouble. So let me temporarily grab these out of here. And maybe I'll just stick them in Notepad for a minute. Like something else in there? Yeah, it could be, could be. Well, I don't think do we have an H3 now? Doesn't look like it, so I don't think that one's giving us trouble. This padding top should be okay. I wonder about this. Because my first thought was like maybe the images are hogging space, you know, and causing there not to be space that can be divided up around the elements. Okay, let me stick with my plan here. Just take the images out for a minute because that will tell me real fast. Did that? Nope, that didn't solve it. So there's something else going on here. We're definitely going to find this. Nav. Div. Oh my goodness. I'm dumb. I know exactly what it is. Our flex span is just in the wrong place, right? We want him to expand in between stores and account. Oh my God, you found it yourself. That's what's going on. Yeah, that's it. So let me bring your images back. Sorry about grabbing those out of there. I went down the wrong path. Let me bring it in here. Whoa. Let's bring back that other nice image. There we go. So then as far as the spacing in between these guys, you could probably just apply a little padding for that. Yeah, just nudge them a little bit. And then I think you're good. I mean, I pretty much didn't do anything there. You found it yourself, so good job. Let's look at the next one here. And Young. Yeah, okay. Did I say it right? Yeah. Did I really? Okay, let's take a look. Ooh la la. This is already getting much nicer. I like it. I also like Adventure Times. That's awesome. Let's see here. So what seems to be the problem here, Young? What are you wanting to do? Oh, okay. Let's see here. Oh, I see it. Where you have just content, you want to say justify. There we go. That's the one. That actually looks pretty good like that, doesn't it? It's not too bad. I wonder what space around looks like. Yeah.